This video I'm speaking about Jeet Kune. It's a video response. Somebody asked me a question about this. Specifically, more about Danny Insanto and what I think about Danny Insanto and Jeet Kune and things like that. I know I made a lot of videos about this, but I'm gonna make another one. It's not to my benefit to speak down on Danny Insanto. I think he's a good guy, but I'm just gonna be real and honest about how I feel about the whole Jeet Kune thing. This is based on study. I studied Bruce Lee, everything out there on him. As far as everything that's been published, from his movies to his books and all of that. The only Jeet Kune that I think is actually real, and the most real that you're gonna get, is from Bruce's movies and the books that have been published. His real writings, his authentic writings that have been non-corrupted, and pretty much those writings will boil down to the ones that were edited by John Little, given over by Linda Lee for John Little to edit and to basically publish. So those books and the movies is all you're gonna get. Everything else is bound to be not the truth. From my research, my understanding, and from what you learn from him, from his movies and from his books, he clearly says over and over again that the system is not a way. Don't turn my way into a system. So he already said that over and over again. So clearly his art is not meant to be turned into a system. Okay? And it is also clear that he started off opening schools, right? He had maybe about 3 schools at different locations, but the schools weren't working out that good for him, and he decided to go into acting. When he decided to go into acting, he closed down all his schools. Alright, so he pursued a different career path. Now, when he's in acting, think about all the time that he's putting into making these movies. Enter the Dragon, Fist of Fury, Way of the Dragon, all this, he's directing, he's acting, he's doing a lot. He's a very busy person. How is he going to have time to teach people? Like, give them the attention that they need in order to get to his level. Clearly, nobody during his time was at his level. Not even close. Even to this day, there are people that have a hard time getting to his level. So I could see and understand his frustrations with being a teacher. For his mentality, he's like, I don't got time to wait around for these people to get better. I need to just do this on my own. And that's pretty much what he did. He's like, you know what? Forget this teaching thing. It's taking too long. I don't got this time to be spending 50 years to build up people to get to where I'm at. No, I'm just gonna be an actor. I'm just gonna express my way. And nobody is going to represent my way except for me. Because nobody is at his level. He's not going to have anybody represent his way other than himself, because nobody's even close to his level. Now, Danny Insanto was not just his student, but Danny Insanto had prior martial arts experience. A lot of martial arts experience. Right? So he was already a martial artist in his own right. Had his own experience. Now, he accepted Bruce as a teacher. But they were also close friends. They were not just teacher and student, they were also close friends. Now if he's a friend of Bruce, and he's a close friend of Bruce, that doesn't necessarily mean that he knows, like, the secrets to Bruce's teachings or something like that. It's just that they're friends. He was friends with Bruce, but nobody was closer to Bruce than his own wife, Linda. But you don't see Linda setting up Jeet Kune schools around the country. You know, Danny Insanto just had a prior martial arts experience, and because he was friends with Bruce, he's just using that as a way to gain advantage for himself, to make more money for himself. It's going to be a lot easier to make money off of the people to claim Jeet Kune Do than it is going to be to claim like Danny Insanto's Filipino martial arts. He's going to make, say, $20 million if he claims himself to be a certified Jeet Kune Do instructor. And then if he claims himself Danny Insanto's Filipino martial arts, he'd be lucky to make $1 million. So clearly, from a business standpoint, he's going to exploit and use that to his, you know, that whatever certification to his advantage in order to continue the profit. But every single certification that is legit expires. You can't have certification that lasts forever. Nothing lasts forever. Nothing. Muhammad Ali was a great boxer, but look at him now. He's not the heavyweight champion of the world right now. He's getting close to death. Could barely even talk. So his time is up. So as far as Bruce is concerned, he died like decades ago. Maybe 40, 50 years ago. So how is the certification that Insanto has how could it even be up to date? It can't. The certification expires, is no longer relevant. It'd be more respectable for him to just promote his own way, his own martial art. And yes, he's already been in a movie with Bruce. You know, Enter the Dragon, or not Enter the Dragon, Game of Death. And people already know that he worked with Bruce. That in itself already is enough of a credential. But you can't take somebody's art that is meant to be just his way and just start to promote it as if it's your own way when it's not. You can only do that when you get permission. But Bruce just died unexpectedly. He didn't plan out his way to become a system. What he decided to do, I'm just going to express my way in the movies and this is me. But nobody is going to take my stuff and try to act like that's theirs. I mean, that's his own creations. You need permission from the owner of creations in order to propagate it. He didn't give permission to anybody. Maybe before he became an actor, maybe he certified a few people in certain things. But times change. And certifications expire. Okay, so there is no such thing as Jeet Kune Do today. Because Bruce Lee is Jeet Kune Do. And he passed away. So everybody that's been inspired by Bruce, that practices the martial arts, and even people that don't practice martial arts, you're supposed to be creative and find your own way and not just milk off of somebody else's ways and profit off of his ways without his permission. Already right there, you're committing a crime. It's a copyright infringement. Right, so say it's just like this YouTube thing, and you took somebody else's music and you started to use it and act as if you created it when you didn't. That right there, you're stealing. And the person that created the music, he could look at you as a criminal. Be like, look, you're profiting off of the music I created. What are you doing? I'm going to sue you. But if you create, or if you promote that person's music and you don't profit off of it, but you just promote it, then he might give you credit and be like, thank you for promoting my music. But Bruce's way is Bruce's way. And Danny Insanto is not Bruce. Danny Insanto is Danny Insanto. So if you're training under Danny Insanto, you're a disciple of Danny Insanto. You're not a disciple of Bruce. But if you learn directly from Bruce, from his movies, from his real writings that are uncorrupted, then you're learning directly from the source. There's no person in between to corrupt the teachings for their own benefit. No matter if it's Danny Insano, Paul Vunak, or whoever out there that's basically profiting off of Bruce's name. You need to create your own name. That's what's real. You look at how the rap artists do it. A lot of people love Tupac. Eminem was a big fan of Tupac, but you don't see Eminem milking off of Tupac's fame. He creates his own label. I'm not Tupac. I'm not a disciple of Tupac or whatever, but I'm my own. I'm Eminem. This is my art, my expression. The only way that there's real disciple is when the person is still living, and he gives the people permission to share his creations. But once the person passes away, you have to, that's your time that you have to let go and start expressing on your own. Unless the creator has properly set guidelines and established formalities in order to help the organization continue to live and grow under his authority while he's living. So meaning, that's how all businesses operate. I mean, you look at things like Subway. I'm just using that as an example. But every corporation operates in this way. So somebody that the owners of Subway, they're living, they created all these chains. When they're about to die, they can either shut down the restaurants completely, or they could give permission and turn over the rights to power or the rights of ownership to somebody else to manage that corporation for the generations to come. But if the people do not manage it correctly, then it could destroy the reputation of Subway. So Bruce has to give permission while he's living for the people to take ownership of his label, of his expression, in order to propagate it to, you know, after he dies. But he didn't do that. So nobody has the right to use his label without his permission to propagate that label in order to profit for themselves. If Bruce was alive, he could protect that label by filing under the copyright claims, and then he owns that label for a certain amount of time, but that expires as well. So you go into the copyright laws, and you could make something your trademark. That's what these corporations do. They make trademarks and they protect them, right? So he could have trademarked Jeet Kune, and then nobody else could use that label except for him. And it's backed by law. If somebody uses it, he'll sue them. But he didn't have time to do all that. He was busy making movies. And then he passed away. Now that label's floating around. Anybody uses it, and then they use it to profit. They use it to exploit, and they're not representing Bruce Lee's teachings. They are basically just profiteers. But I'm not saying that Danny Insano has that mentality that he just wants to profit off of Bruce. But he may just feel like, you know what? There's so much that Bruce had to share. I don't want him to just end it. So he may try to find a way to try to continue to promote Bruce's teachings even after his death. And it's just hard not to give in when all these people are willing to just give you money to teach you what Bruce taught you. It's hard to turn that away. So, you know, but another thing is like this. Bruce worked with a lot of different people too. He worked with Chuck Norris, for example. And Chuck Norris, you know, he had his own name, his own brand, his own fame. He's more famous than Danny Insanto. He's a lot more profitable than Danny Insanto. He's been in a lot of movies. Chuck Norris has his own name. He might not be as good as Bruce, but he has his own name. Just like Subway might not be as profitable as McDonald's, but they got their own label. McDonald's is extremely commercialized, making a bunch of money. Subway's making a lot of money too. So you got Bruce Lee, very profitable name. Chuck Norris is a profitable name as well. But why isn't all Bruce Lee's disciples or fans running to Chuck Norris? Because Chuck Norris is representing himself. He's not trying to milk off of Bruce's fame, because he already has his own fame. And as far as skill is concerned, Chuck Norris may have reached an even higher level than Danny Insanto. But why isn't everybody running to Chuck Norris? Because he's still alive and he can still regulate corruption because he's alive. And he's not gonna milk off of Bruce's fame when he has his own fame. Look at Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He fought with Bruce in the movie as well. But you don't see Kareem Abdul-Jabbar setting up his own Jeet Kune schools. In the fight, in the movie, Bruce had a much harder time defeating Kareem Abdul-Jabbar than he did with Danny Insanto. Clearly, Bruce was trying to illustrate that, hey, you know, this is going to be the toughest. Kareem. Look at how big he is. Look at how strong he is. Look at how small I am compared to him. Look at how hard I have to struggle to beat him. He whooped Danny Insanto's ass with no problem in the movie. Pretty much, I'm saying that's illustrating how much of above Danny Insanto in skill-wise that he was, according to Danny Insanto, in relation to Danny Insanto. But with Kareem, he had a lot harder time. He respected Kareem because of his size, and also Kareem was his disciple as well. But you don't see Kareem running around making Jeet Kune schools. Because Kareem already has a bunch of money. He was like an all-star basketball player. He doesn't need to milk off of somebody's fame in order to make money. You know, and basically there's a lot of people that worked with Bruce. You know, and it's not just Danny Insanto. But the people that will milk off his name and make money off his name, you know, it's tempting. And it's hard not to do it. But what I'm saying is that there is no such thing as Jeet Kune because Bruce is dead. As long as he's dead, it's not here. You gotta express it on your own and don't call it Jeet Kune. Because that's his label. That's his expression. Come up with something on your own. You know, just like, you know, you got people like, you know, this person that creates like P90X. He created that label P90X. He's going to protect that label. It's protected by law. And that was his label. And you got somebody else that creates the label Insanity. Then he promotes that label. Everybody's coming up with their own labels, representing themselves. But if you want to use somebody else's label, you need their permission. And that's pretty much how it goes. But most martial arts schools or school owners, they don't have the money to back up their labels. They don't have the money to protect their labels. So they come up with the label, and then it's not protected by law, so then everybody goes out there and starts using it, and then they start corrupting it all up, and it's all jacked up. But if you got the money to back your label, say you're the CEO of Apple, that's your label. iPod, Apple, iPhone, that is your label. You protect that with your money, with the law, and then nobody can touch that label and start corrupting it. And then, you know, people coming up with that, using that label, and starting to come up with these garbage software or equipment, and then they destroy the reputation of your label. Some, corporations like Nike, they got that label protected. You can't just start going making shirts with Nike and not expect to get sued. Alright, so these labels are protected. But Bruce's label is not protected. That's why it's so corrupted. Everybody's using that label, claiming that they know this and that and whatever. The fact of the matter is, nobody has that right, because he didn't give that right to nobody. So what you gotta do is you have to create your own. Express your own. That's the real Jeet Kune. But it has to go under another label. You know what I mean? That's why we all have different names. Like, these names are supposed to separate us and represent our individuality. So if you want to stay true to Bruce's teachings, then stay original. Original, not like milking off of him and stealing his creations. You need to start creating on your own right. Create your own labels, create your own way. Don't just look at his book, copy everything from that book, and then act like that's you, that's yours. Right there, that's plagiarizing. You have to create your own book. Create your own label. Create your own expression. That was what he was trying to motivate people to do. But if you're going to follow anybody, follow somebody that's living and get their permission to follow. If you don't get their permission, you start getting a book from Eckhart Tolle, and then you publish that same exact book, and you try to start making money off that, you're going to have lawsuits coming at you. Because that's not your stuff. That's pretty much how it boils down to. But because Bruce is gone, there's nobody there to regulate all this corruption, all this plagiarism, all this copyright infringement that's going on. He's dead, so that's why everybody keeps exploiting him, because he's dead. There's nothing he could do about it. But you got somebody like Chuck Norris who's still living, he could sue your ass. So people don't mess with him. Because he's still living. And he has money. So if he wants to sue you, he will sue you. So that's pretty much my views on it. I don't got anything against Danny Insanto. But the way that I see him, he's just somebody that was fortunate enough to be friends with Bruce. And he trained with Bruce. But that don't really mean much. You'll learn a lot more from Linda Lee than you will from Danny Insanto. Linda Lee was pretty much the closest person to Bruce. You'll learn a lot more from her than anybody else. So everybody should be running to Linda Lee, not to Danny Insanto. But it's not just about fighting. It's just about his life, his way of life, the way that he thought about things, his philosophy. It's not just about the fighting. But that's the way I see it. And everything that's Jeet Kune out there is all false. It's all fake. None of it is real. As a matter of fact, all the labels out there that's being used by people that didn't create it on their own, and they didn't get permission from the person that's actually living to use that label, it's all false. The only labels that are real are the labels that are created by the original owners of the label that created it. And they give permission for somebody else to continue on with that label. But you got labels like, Purdue University or Notre Dame University. How do these universities survive for so many years? Well, they got money to back up their reputation. And they got board members to help manage the university to promote its growth for continued generations. But these board members have to know what they're doing. Otherwise, the university will just shut down. Just like there's a lot of businesses that go out of business. It has to be properly managed by people that know what they're doing. That's how a label will continue on to the next generation. It needs responsibility, and it needs to be properly managed. But you notice that every single system is bound to fail. And even Osho was talking about Rome. Every single political system crumbled, because all of it will crumble. So the Roman Empire is all powerful, and then it crumbles. So basically, it's just a transfer of ownership for each label. The US government is a label, but the people that manage the US government, it changes from time to time. And when certain people take office, they could destroy the whole reputation of that label. And then other people could take office after him and uplift that label, uplift that reputation. So you got somebody like George Bush that comes in here, destroys the whole US reputation. And then you got somebody like maybe Barack Obama or whoever that's coming in to try to fix it up, patch it up. John F. Kennedy or Abraham Lincoln or Bill Clinton. Some people that are patching up the reputation of the US. And you got other people that go in there and destroy everything. You know, so that's what it is. Protecting the reputation of certain labels. But since Bruce is gone, it's done. We need to start brand new with a new label, and we have to build a stronger foundation in order to promote its growth for the years to come. But Bruce wasn't out there to create an organization. He let go of that. He decided to go on his own and represent himself. Self-promote himself in the movies. He said, fuck the organizations. I'm representing myself. This is me, Bruce Lee. Nobody's at this level but me. And I'm representing myself. That's it. He decided to do that. It's done. Alright? That's pretty much how it went. So now, if you're inspired by Bruce, you can't milk off his label. He didn't give no permission to nobody. You need to create your own. You need to be your own Bruce Lee. Whatever your name is, and start getting to his level and even higher in order to represent the real martial arts. And you got to create your own following. You got to stop milking off of his. That's it. That's the way I see it. There's no real Jeet Kune out there other than Bruce. You need to create your own. Create your own label. Be yourself. Be original. That's it.